Right. Welcome everyone to our Monash Cybersecurity Seminars. Today we are welcoming Sri Aravinda Krishnan, who will talk about verifiable timed signatures made practical. So Aravind is currently doing his PhD in computer science at University of Erlangen-Nuremberg, and his main interest is in applied cryptography, and he's particularly interested in designing new primitives for enhancing privacy and efficiency of various applications. And as I mentioned today, he will talk about verifiable timed signatures, and the scene is yours, Aravind. Thank you.
Okay, so let me try my screen now. Okay, so I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, okay.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right. So welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for Mohammed for inviting me to present my work. I haven't timed my talk, so I mean, you can feel free to interrupt me, if you like, or we can have the questions in the later. And if I go over the time, please let me know. Okay. Okay. So this is going to be a talk on verifiable time signatures made practical, and there's a joint work with Aditya Bhatt, Julia Malavolta, Nico Dotling, Aniket Kate, and my advisor Dominic Schroeder. Okay, so let's straight away jump into the talk. So the work mainly concerns what is known as timed cryptography, right? So for those who are familiar with the notions of cryptography, the classical notions, mostly deal with adversaries that are referred to as being efficient or probabilistic polynomial time, the adversaries that run in the polynomial time in the security parameter. And the classical notions you have from this notion are encryption schemes, digital signatures, and commitment schemes, right? And there is the other notion called the timed version, otherwise referred as fine-grained crypto, where we only consider adversaries for some specific efficiency, right? So either if you consider the adversary in the form of a circuit, you consider depth-bounded circuits, or in the form of random access machines, you consider PRAM machines, etc. So these machines run efficiently, but you put a bound on its concrete running time or parallel running time, and so on, etc. And you get some nice, interesting primitives out of this. Most popular ones being time lock puzzles, timed commitments, and most recently, verifiable delay functions. So in this work, we will deal with time commitments and how the time commitments can be leveraged to build new applications that were not known before. Okay, so what are time commitments? You have a user Alice who has some secret value S, and she creates a commitment by running this commit algorithm, such that this commitment can be opened after time t, publicly and non-interactively to reveal the secret value S. Okay, and the property that we are interested in is that of timed privacy, that says that no information about the secret is revealed before time t, right? So till time t, there's no information revealed, and then after, by time t, you can basically force open this commitment. Okay. And what are timed signatures? So think of the secret as being a signature on some known message under some known public key, right? So in this case, Alice has a document under signature sigma A. She embeds this signature sigma A inside the commitment, and then the commitment can be force opened in time t to reveal this the signature sigma A. And the time privacy says that you can't know the signature before time t from this commitment. Okay, but if you notice closely, you need one additional property for the time signature, and that is what is referred to as verifiable time signatures. This the additional property is that of verifiability, that says that given this commitment, right, you should be able to verify if this commitment indeed embeds a valid signature sigma A on the document or the message. Okay, and this verification should be efficient and should be independent of and independent of time t, and to be non-trivial, this verification algorithm should be much faster than time t, right? Because otherwise you could simply try opening the puzzle and learn the signature and then verify if this is a valid signature. So you really want the verification algorithm to be extremely fast compared to the force open. Okay. And you have nice applications of this primitive, mainly in fair multi-party contract signing. And the main objective of this work is to basically flesh out this broad, broad class of application in the realm of cryptocurrencies, blockchains, and so on. Okay. As I said, we identified some new applications, namely in payment channel networks, multisig transactions, fair multi-party computation. And in all these applications, the common theme that you get from using VTS or verifiable time signatures is that you get better on-chain privacy, and you make these applications compatible with many blockchains that do not offer special scripting functionalities like time lock transaction, etc. So specifically in payment channel networks, we can do we can remove this time lock, what we call as time lock correlation attack. We can prevent this attack on chain, and a consequence of these on-chain privacy and removing the time lock correlation is that you get better fungibility. Right, so some transactions that are specific to your applications are appear indistinguishable from any other transaction. So that's fungibility. And one popular application of blockchains or Bitcoin is that of fair multi-party computation. And here we show that you can actually do fair multi-party computation with many blockchains. Because the requirements from the blockchains become less if you use VTS. Okay, so in this talk, I will mainly focus on the first two, the payment channel networks and multisig transactions. And by the time I flesh out these applications, it would be clear, okay, so where exactly VTS fits in building the applications that we have and that one could have based on blockchains. Okay, I will first focus on the applications because the work is mostly application driven, and then I will show you, I will give you an idea of our techniques. Okay, so payment channel networks, it's a generalization of payment channels, which is a proposal to improve scalability of cryptocurrencies through off-chain payments. Okay, so what is this? So you have two users, Alice, Bob, and they have a shared public key, PKAB, which has initial funds, let's say of 30 coins, and the channel expiry time is T, right? So what does this mean? This means that the funds of 30 coins stays in PKAB, until time T, and the funds go back to Alice after time T. This is what this expiry time means. Okay, and usually this expiry time is realized through some time lock script from the blockchain. Okay, and okay, so they share this this shared key or the payment channel. And how do you make payments? So if Alice wants to make payments, what she does is she generates a transaction TXPay1 that pays 1 coin from the shared address to Bob. And then if she wants to make more payments, she can just make these payments, the list of these payments. And you can see that if the quantum of token of payment is just 1 coin, then she can make up to 30 payments, right? So 30 payment transactions. And notice that these payment transactions are remaining off chain. They are not posted on chain. So this is like an off chain agreement between Alice and Bob. And to finalize the payment or to close the channel, one of these 30 payment transactions have to be posted on chain before time t. Okay, and you can see why it has to be before time t, because the channel by then would have expired. So it has to be before time t. Okay, and payment channel networks is a natural generalization of payment channels where you can make payments via several payment channels, right? And these payment channels could exist in different cryptocurrencies. So it could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, and the Bitcoin user could make a payment to the user in Monero via the channel in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero, right? So in other words, you have Alice and Bob who do not share a payment channel themselves, but they have a series of payment channels via Carol and Dave. And to make a payment of 30 coins, they set up these payments where there's TX pay AC, where Alice pays Carol from their channel 30 coins to Carol, and the expiry time of this transaction is set to +2 delta. Okay, and I'll just tell you why the expiry times of these payments are set in this way. It is actually necessary because the point is it shouldn't be possible for example, Carol to the payment from Carol to Dave to expire before the payment from Dave to Bob expires, right? Because otherwise Dave would lose the money. So we want to ensure that no intermediate user loses the money in this process. So you set the expiry times in this iterative fashion. So that's like Dave, Bob have T, Cal, Dave has T plus delta, and Alice and Carol has T plus 2 delta. So there's this delta gap in the time. Okay. And usually these payment transactions are realized through what is called hash time lock contracts. I won't go into the detail of how this hash time lock contract works, but the idea is that if the payment from Dave and Bob goes through, right, then the payment from Carol and Dave goes through, and then the payment from Alice and Carol goes through. So this is how you set up these contracts, such that Bob gets paid first, then Dave, then Carol, and in essence, this just means that Alice has paid to Bob. Okay, and these, as I said, these these times of these payment transactions are otherwise known as payment expiry times, and it is just to ensure that no honest intermediary user loses coins because the user to the left of him expires the payment before he can get paid. Okay, and there have been several works to improve the on-chain privacy of these proposals, namely to have these HTLCs set up in such a way that the HTLC between Alice and Carol is unlinkable to the HTLC from Carol to Dave and to Dave to Bob. So in 2017, there was a proposal to make these HTLC contracts unlinkable. And then in a later work in 2019, they actually said that, you don't need HTLCs anymore. You can just do signatures, right? So what does it mean? This means that if the payment from Dave to Bob, the transaction is posted on chain with a valid signature, then a transaction from Carol to Dave can go through with a valid signature. So previously it was a HTLC, but now it's just a transaction on a signature. Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, this all seems good, but if you look closely, right? So there's something called a time lock correlation. Namely, if you notice that these, as I said, these time lock values are set up in a delta increasing fashion, and then this causes a correlation on chain, right? So if these payments TX pay AC, pay CD, and pay DB on all these transactions go through, you can see that the transactions along have these correlatable time lock expiry times, and an on-chain observer can basically link these, can make an intelligent guess about this time lock correlation and figure out that, okay, these transactions actually belong to the same path. Yeah, okay. So we propose, how to, break this time lock correlation. And the idea is that you use VTS to mimic the payment expiry, right? So what is payment expiry? It just says that Alice, so look at the payment from Alice and Carol, right? So the payment expiry just says that Carol cannot get paid after time t plus 2 delta, right? So after t plus 2 delta, Carol does not get these 32 coins, okay? So we want to mimic this expiry with VTS. And the idea is to have what is called a steal transaction. And this steal transaction, basically is set up in such a way that it spends the coins from the payment transaction, right? In the following way. So notice that TX pay AC, right? So it said it's going to pay 32 coins from the channel between Alice and Carol to Carol, right? And the steal transaction for this payment transaction is set up in such a way that it pays 32 coins from the address of Carol back to Alice. So basically, Alice can steal the coins from Carol, right? But the caveat here is that of course the steal transaction has to be signed by just Carol. So Carol signs this steal transaction. The sigma c in plain, right? Because if Carol gives the sigma c in plain to Alice, Alice can anytime steal the coins, right? So it's like whenever Carol posts the payment transaction and gets paid 32 coins, Alice can immediately steal back. We don't want this, right? Instead, what we want is that if Carol posts the payment transaction after time t plus 2 delta, then Alice can steal the money back. So this is what we want. And so to do this, what Carol does is Carol puts this signature into a VTS with a hiding time of t plus 2 delta and gives this VTS to Alice, okay? And notice that Alice can force open this VTS to learn sigma c after time t plus 2 delta, right? And by then, she knows the steal transaction and a valid signature. So if ever Carol posts the payment transaction after t plus 2 delta, Alice can immediately steal it back, okay? So, and notice that this VTS, right, is completely off-chain. So this means that the information that is t plus 2 delta, or the time lock information, is never available on chain. So to pictorially see this, so think of this as the timeline. And if after time t plus 2 delta, right, if Carol posts this payment transaction, which she's not supposed to, right? But if she does, what happens is Alice can immediately post the steal transaction, because by now Alice knows by now Alice has force opened the VTS and knows the signature sigma c, and it can immediately steal back. But you should be just careful that, because you want to avoid any kind of a race condition, and for that you need something like a relative time lock. That's a bit it's just a play with the script to ensure that Carol, after posting the payment transaction, doesn't create a conflict with the steal transaction, right? So what Carol could do is she posts the payment transaction and immediately spends from this PK prime C, right? Immediately spends. So she posts 2 transactions, and then this would create a race condition with Alice, the steal transaction of Alice. So you want to prevent this, and you want to use some kind of a relative time lock script. And but notice that this relative time lock is completely specific to Alice and Carol. It does not depend on the relative time lock value between Carol and Dave and Bob, right? So this is independent of the other 2 relative time lock values, and therefore it's not correlated, okay? So notice that the absolute time lock, absolute payment expiry is realized through VTS, and we ensure that the relative time locks are not correlated with the other payments. Okay.
Can I ask a question here, Aravind?
Yeah.
So this relative time lock, this one is still like supported by the blockchain, and the other one is realized using VTS. Is that
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So there is actually still one time lock from the blockchain side.
Yes. And fortunately, Bitcoin offers this, and yeah, you're right. So you need this to, yeah, it would be an open problem to solve that, but yeah, you need that.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the next application. So you have, I talked about multi-sig transactions, and so if you notice, what we are doing is we are kind of moving from the specific application towards a more, generic generic applications, and then multi-sig transaction is one such, and it has many applications in distributed wallets, fair computation, etc. So what is the set? Let me put the setting here. So the setting is that there is an address that is shared between multiple users. And what does this mean? This means that there is some transaction that wants to spend from this address, right? And to do this, all these users who share this address have to generate the signature on this transaction, right? This is what the shared address means. And there is a variant of this. You can have like a threshold signature policy where, some at least some threshold number of parties need to sign on the transaction to spend from this shared address. Okay. And notice that, before the funds are sent to this address, to this shared address, the parties kind of need to agree on some time t star, such that after time t star, a transaction, like a redeem transaction, can be posted on chain that spends from this address back to the parties, like the original state. And this you can do it with time lock script. And if you ask me why you need this, I mean, notice that if one of the users goes offline, right, forever, right, then the money is forever locked in this address, in the shared address, right? So to prevent this, it's like an insurance policy that says that after time t star, the money would be sent back to the users using the redeem transaction. Okay, and you can do this with the time lock script. And if you notice, then this time lock script really causes the problem of on-chain privacy or fungibility of the coins stored in the shared address. And moreover, you need you need this time lock functionality from the script or of the chain, right, to realize these multi-sig addresses. And this is a problem because like privacy preserving chains out there do not offer this time lock script on the blockchain. Okay. And as I said, there are many applications that are built on multi-sig transactions. So this is kind of like a bottleneck on these applications if you want the blockchain to offer time lock script. Okay, so the idea is kind of the same as before. So you want to remove this time lock script using VTS, and you want to mimic the expiry time of the transaction off chain, right? So to do this, before the coins are sent to this address, what these parties do is they generate a redeem transaction that spends from this address back to the parties. And each party signs this redeem transaction and puts their respective signatures into the into a VTS. And notice that these VTS are set with hiding time T, right? Which is, you will see why. Okay, and then once this is done, they broadcast this VTS among all the parties. And once this is, after this, then the parties, send whatever coins they have to this shared address. So it's important that the redeem transaction and the VTS is done before the funds are sent to the shared address. Okay, so now what happens? Notice that these VTS, everyone has every other VTS, and they can solve the VTS by time t, and that means that by time t they know valid signatures on the redeem transaction, right? So if the shared address remains unspent at time t, any party can post the redeem transaction and the respective 4 signatures on the chain, right? So after time, so this kind of realizes the expiry time of this multisig address. And notice that this VTS is completely off chain, and you don't need the script anymore from the blockchain. Yeah. So, and the additional caveat of this is that it looks like any other transaction, right? So there's no time lock script. And notice that if just one party is honest and every other party is malicious and just goes offline, right? The honest party is still guaranteed that by time t she will get her funds back, right? So this actually is pretty cool, because usually you would try to realize this using a time lock script, and if you don't want that, you would kind of do something like a threshold policy. In our case, we don't use either, right? So yeah. Okay. And let me now go into give you some idea about our constructions. So we propose efficient constructions of VTS where the timed commitment is for a ECDSA signature or a Schnorr signature or a BLS signature, right? So I notice that these three signatures are primarily of immense interest for the cryptocurrency space right now. Okay. And on a very high level, the caveats of our construction is that you have a one-time setup, and the size of the parameters are small relative to what we knew before. And we to realize this efficiency in our construction, we actually make use of the recently introduced homomorphic time lock puzzles. And we actually show that more than efficiency, you also need it for the security of the protocol, and I will tell you later why. And we also give batch range proofs over these time lock puzzles, so where the size of the proof is independent of the number of puzzles that you are proving the proofs for. And when I describe the protocol, I will tell you why these range proofs are actually important. Okay. So let me give our overview of our BLS signatures, because I think that is easier to understand, and Schnorr and ECDSA follow from the same idea. Okay, so the template that we will follow for our VTS constructions is that we will make use of time lock puzzles, and we will use a non-interactive zero knowledge proof for the verifiability of the VTS, right? So the time lock puzzles will act as our time commitment, and for the verifiability of the commitment, we will use the NISIC proof. Okay. So just to give a brief background on what are time lock puzzles, it was proposed by Rivers, Shamir, and Wagner in '96, and the primitive is like, there's Alice who generates a puzzle, puts a solution inside the puzzle and gives it to Bob, and Bob can solve the puzzle for time t and obtain this solution that is embedded by Alice. In terms of properties, what we want is that the generation time for the puzzle, Alice generating the puzzle, is much shorter than time t. And in terms of security, we want that we want the puzzle to be secure against parallel algorithms, meaning that the secret that is embedded inside the puzzle is hidden for circuits of depth less than t, regardless of the size of the circuit. Right, so meaning that basically before time t, in other words, it means that before time t, a PRAM machine cannot learn any information about the secret that is embedded. Okay, and in terms of applications, time lock puzzles, you find it everywhere. You find it sealed bid auctions, fair contract signing, zero knowledge arguments, non-malleable commitments, and many more. Okay. So formally, you have these two algorithms. You have the puzzle generation algorithm, that takes as input the security parameter, the hardness parameter T, and the solution S, and outputs a puzzle Z. And the solving algorithm takes the puzzle Z and outputs the solution S. And we want that the puzzle generation algorithm runs in it's much faster than T. So therefore, we say poly. It runs in poly log T, and the solve algorithm runs in poly T, right? And in security, we want that a puzzle generated with S0 is computationally indistinguishable from a puzzle generated with S1 as a solution for any T-bounded adversaries. And this is where the very first slide I mentioned about the efficiency of the adversary in timed cryptography. Okay. And in terms of constructions, the most popular construction is that of the ones based on repeated squaring in the RSA group. So in the setting, you have two large primes PQ, and you generate an RSA modulus n. And the repeated squaring is basically you take a random element x in Zn star, and then you keep squaring it, x square, x power 4, and you do T squarings. And to crucially achieve this this security, security against parallel adversaries, it is important that the adversary or the party that is doing the solving does not know the order of n, right? So the order of the group is hidden. If that is the case, then you can make the sequential squaring assumption and argue about the parallel solving of the time block puzzle. And I won't talk about this in this talk, but in one of my previous works where we do homomorphic time block puzzles, that's 2019. You can, which is also based on sequential squaring. There you can achieve homomorphic properties, right? So meaning that you have several puzzles, several time block puzzles, and you can homomorphically compute over these puzzles the necessary function, right? And to obtain a single puzzle and then eventually solve the single puzzle. Okay. That is something that we will heavily rely in our construction. And the other known construction of time block puzzle is that of based on randomized encoding. And for that, you need powerful tools like indistinguishability of obfuscation. Okay. And so how are these time block puzzles used in our VTS? It's, you would have guessed already. So Alice, instead of embedding any solution, she embeds the signature sigma A into this puzzle, and then Bob has to solve this puzzle to learn sigma A. Okay. As I said before, you need some kind of a verifiability, and for this, we use a Nizic proof. And what is this Nizic proof proof? So given a public key PK, a message M, a puzzle Z, and the hardness parameter T, the prover or the puzzle generator sends a proof that proves that what is embedded inside is actually a valid signature, and that the puzzle is actually well formed, right? What I mean by well formed is that the puzzle can be solved correctly in time T. Okay, and the efficiency really comes from the fact that we design a tailor-made efficient Nizic proof compared to the previous construction, which I will talk in the upcoming slides. Okay, so the very first construction of VTS where the verifiability was dealt with explicitly was by Garay and Jacobson in 2002 and 2003, where the idea is to embed the signature inside a time block puzzle. And use a DDH style Nizic proof where there is something called a timeline, right? So what they have a timeline in the public parameter, and this timeline are elements, are basically elements that are squared up to 2 power t, right? So it's like g square, g power 4, g power 8, and up to g power 2 power t. Right, so these are elements, and this series of elements are referred to as timeline, and it is part of the public parameter. and they kind of do, what they have to do is they embed their signature into one of, by using one of these elements in this timeline as the blinding factor, right? And then they kind of do a DDH proof, DDH style proof to show that it is indeed embedded correctly in one of the squared values. Okay, I won't go into the details of this construction. You're free, you're welcome to look at it. So, but the problems here are, are that of both space and time. So, I mean, notice that the public parameter, right? It has to have all these squared values, right? So g squared, g power 4, and so on. And this really depends on the hardness parameter t, right? And based on our evaluations, we saw that for any reasonable hardness t, right? So if you want the puzzle to be opened in 1 hour, or if you want the puzzle to be opened in 1 day, right? Even for 1 hour, you have to set the hardness parameter t to be something like much larger than 10 power 9, right? And that means in their proposal, you really have a public parameter with 10 power 9 elements in it, and that's massive, right? And it's clearly not scalable if a user has to store these public parameters for several users, right? And moreover, their construction is kind of tailored to RSA, DSA, and Schnorr. And RSA, DSA is really not in I don't know if it's in practice in the cryptocurrency space. And we were not aware of an implementation of their proposal. I would be happy to be corrected here. So on a very high level, their construction really didn't was not very compatible if you want to use like low power devices like or medium like your phone or your desktop, and you want to store such large parameters, right? And with increasing hardware, you really want to increase your hardness parameter, right? So this really goes up with the hardness parameter. Okay. So we try to solve this problem, right? So we want to instantiate this NISIC proof in an efficient manner. So on a very high level, so we have a message M, a public key PK, and a signature sigma, right? And the committer wants to commit to this signature sigma. So what does he do? So what he first does is he secret shares this signature into sigma 1 up to sigma n using T out of n Shamir secret sharing. And the T here, the threshold T, is set as n over 2, right? So half n over, half of these values, half of n is set as the threshold value. And the committer then generates a VTS for each of these shares, okay, using time-out puzzles. And using a non-interactive cut and choose, which you can realize using Fiat-Shamir heuristic, T-1 indices or T-1 puzzles of this n puzzles are opened, okay? Randomly chosen T-1 puzzles are open. Then you generate the commitment C and the proof pi, where the commitment C is the unopened puzzles, right? So there's like n minus T-1 puzzles are unopened. So this is the commitment C, and the open puzzles are the proof, okay? Okay, so now you have the unopened puzzles and the open signature shares or the open puzzles as the commitment and the proof respectively. And the verification works as follows. The verifier checks if these open shares are indeed valid signature shares. And you can do this efficiently for BLS, Schnorr, and ECDSA. Okay, I will show you how, I will show you this in the case of BLS, but believe me that you can do this efficiently for Schnorr and ECDSA as well. Okay, so once you verify these open signature shares are in fact valid, then you can prove that you're convinced that there is at least one more, one unopened puzzle that has a valid share. Okay, and with this guarantee, the verifier goes ahead and solves these unopened puzzles, right? Or solves all of them. And he obtains all the shares, and then he can pick one of them which is a valid share, and thereby he has one share that he had solved for, and he has t minus 1 of them that were opened, and thereby he gets t valued shares. And with this, he can reconstruct the original signature that was embedded. Okay, and okay, so let me dive into more detail and show you about our VT-BLS. Okay, so just to recap the BLS signature, I've just written it down here. So it is a pairing based signature. The signature sigma is set as hash of the message raised to the secret key. And the verification equation, you know, it has a pairing in this form. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to keep the signature scheme there. So you know, if you are not familiar, you can have a look. Okay. So how does our work? So as I said, we have a one-time setup algorithm, right? So the setup algorithm is, you know, we are going to run the linearly homomorphic time lock puzzles from the from MT19. So to generate the public parameters. Okay, so how do you commit and prove? So given a signature sigma, first you generate t minus 1 random samples of alpha I, you know, which are basically integers from ZQ, and you generate, you know, BLS signatures basically. So these are basically, if you look at it, they are just BLS signatures with alpha I as the secret key, and you are also generating the corresponding public key as G0 raised to alpha I. So if you just notice this, these are just in the structure of the public key and the signature. Okay. Okay, so now you generate the rest of the signature shares, you know, by you know, craftily, you know, by intelligently arranging the elements such that each of these sigma I, right? Each of these sigma I is a valid share for a t out of n sharing of sigma. Okay, so what I mean by this is that if you take the sigma I that were generated in the first step, which is t minus 1 number of them, and you take each of these sigma I that is generated in the next step, you get a valid t out of n sharing of the original signature sigma, and you also do this for the public key. Okay, so you ensure that each of these you know, public key shares are valid t out of n shares of the original public key PK. So that is what the second step it really does. And here these LIs are basically the Lagrange polynomial basis. So what we are essentially doing is we are trying to, you know, break open the Shamir secret sharing reconstruction algorithm here, right, to set these signature shares. Okay, and then we generate a linear. We run the puzzle generation of this linearly homomorphic time lock puzzles on each of these signature shares sigma I, right, for each of them, by choosing random coins Ri for each of them. Okay, and now you know, okay, so these puzzles are generated. Now it's time for the cut and choose. What you do is you run the random oracle on the public key and all of these values that you have generated before, which is like all the public key shares and the puzzles, to generate this set I of indices of size t minus 1. Okay, and then the commitment is set as these all these puzzles and the hardness parameter t, while the proof essentially is the set of all these partial all these public key shares or partial public keys, and the set I, right, which is the set of indices for the cut and choose, and you are essentially revealing all the signature shares sigma I and the corresponding random coins I for the indices that are in this I. Right, so basically the cut and choose set is the capital I, which is set of indices, and you're opening the puzzles, the corresponding puzzles, and revealing the signature shares embedded and the corresponding random coins. Okay, and for verification, so you know, if any of the following condition is satisfied, you output 0. Right, so So if the public key is not correctly found with respect to the public key shares, note that the proof pi has all the public key shares. So you can actually check if these public key shares are correctly found with respect to PK. Okay, so if there is any malformed public key share, you immediately abort, and you check if each of the opened signature shares, right? So from the cut and choose, each of these open signature shares, you check if they are actually valid signatures, right, with respect to the corresponding public key share, right? So that is the check here. So you check if each of these signature shares are themselves valid signatures with respect to the public key share, and you also check if the opened puzzles are well formed, right? So notice that you also reveal sigma I and the random coin for the set I. Right, so you can essentially run the puzzle generation yourself and check if the puzzle is correctly formed. So you do this check. If any of them fails, you abort, and then you check if the cut and choose indices are actually correctly computed, right, by running the random oracle yourself. Okay, so once this is done, yeah, the verifier is guaranteed that okay, all these everything is fine. And to open the committer, right? So the committer can himself open the signatures, right? He need not let the verifier always force open. So he himself can voluntarily come and open. So to do that, what he does is he reveals the signature sigma and all the random coins that he used. Okay. So with this, the verifier can actually verify that, okay, fine, signature sigma is correct, and all whatever the commitments and the proof he gave were also correct because we know the random coins. Okay, so if the committer doesn't do this, right, so then the verifier has to really force open the puzzles, right? So you have the commitments that is Z1 to Zn. What he does is, he basically solves each of these puzzles and computes this signature sigma I. But notice that t minus 1 of these puzzles are already open, right? So that means he only needs to solve n minus t plus 1 puzzles, right? And once the verifier obtains these signature shares sigma I, now it's just Shamir secret sharing reconstruction, and with t value shares he can obtain the committed to signature sigma. All right, I skipped some few optimizations, and I'll just go through them. So we actually use, as I said, we need to solve n minus t plus 1 puzzles, right, in the force open. So we can actually get rid of this if you homomorphically pack these puzzles into a single puzzle, and that's why we make use of linear homomorphism. Okay, I'll show you what homomorphic packing is. So if you do this homomorphic packing and you get a single puzzle, you only need to solve a single puzzle instead of n minus t plus 1 puzzles. So what is this homomorphic packing, right? So basically what you do is, given these puzzles Z1 to Zn, you homomorphically compute the function where you are doing basically a concatenation operation, right? So if you see here, what happens is this function results in the end, what it results in is like x1 concatenated with x2 concatenated with x2, x3, and so on, right? So x1 is in the higher order bits, and x2 is in the next set of bits, and x3 is in the next, and xn is in the lower order bits. So this is how you basically, this is what the function computes, and you homomorphically compute this function over these puzzles. And notice that this is just a linear function, right? So this is just a constant multiplied here. So this is just a linear function, and therefore a linear homomorphic time lock puzzle suffices. And I'm just going to show you pictorially what happens is, when these xi values are basically signature shares. So in the end, when you do this homomorphic packing, you get a single puzzle like z tilde. That just, if you solve z tilde, what you get is basically sigma 1 concatenated with sigma 2 concatenated with sigma 3, and so on up to sigma n, right? So you solve a single puzzle, and then you essentially get all the signature shares in a concatenated fashion. Okay. So I would refer you to the paper if you are interested in more details about this. So we basically use the Damgard-Urich version of the linearly homomorphic time-lock puzzles to homomorphically pack several plain text into this encrypted ciphertext. Okay. So I promised to tell you that this is also not just for efficiency. You also need it for security, because a honest party, right? A honest party may not have the required computation as an adversary has. So the adversary could have several processors, and he could parallelly solve n minus t plus 1 puzzles, right? He could parallelly solve each of these puzzles, and then what he would get, in the end, he would just spend the time required for solving a single puzzle, right? Because he has so much parallel computational power. But a honest party may not have this, right? So a honest party may just have a single core. That means he has to solve one puzzle, then the next one, and then the next one, and then he has to do this sequentially for n minus t1 of our, especially our PCN and multisig transactions, right? Because an adversary with parallel processing power is able to solve the VTS much faster, force open the VTS much faster than a honest party. Okay, so this actually is also required for security. And we also do this efficient range proofs, for correctness in this homomorphic packing, right? Notice that the committer has to prove that the sigma 1 is within this range, right? So he has to prove that it is within this block range, right? If not, then sigma 1 kind of will overflow into the portion of sigma 2, right? And if that happens, then you are no longer guaranteed the correctness in the concatenation operation. So the committer also has to prove that each of these puzzles Z1, Z2, and so on actually embeds whatever secret, that is in this case sigma 1, sigma 2, and so on. He has to prove that each of these values lie within some range, right? And then within some bound, and then using this you are guaranteed correctness in the packing. And we give a protocol that exploits linear homomorphism, and therefore we get an efficient and a highly batchable proof, where you can prove range proof over several homomorphic puzzles in a single shot, right? So you need not prove the range proof in a naive sense. You would do that for Z1, you do that for Z2, and then you would do that, so on until Zn. But now, you can exploit the linear homomorphism and then prove a single proof that proves that each of the embedded values in Z1, Z2, up to Zn, each of these values are actually lie within a range. You can do this in a batchable manner. So, I mean, I will highly recommend you to look at the paper for more details if you are interested. Okay, so we also evaluate our protocol, and one of the things that we do, and we didn't find in the previous papers, was to kind of evaluate the squaring function, right? So we did this over several machines in AWS, and you can see that if you set your RSA modulus n as a 1024-bit modulus or 2048-bit, you can see that the number of squarings that can performed in a single hour are in the range of 10 power 9, right? So these are the number of squarings that you can perform in a single hour in real time, right? For different machines. And you can also see that there are some variations up to in the number of squarings that can be performed with the machines that you choose, right? With the processing power that you choose. Okay. And we also evaluated this homomorphic packing strategy, right? So like how long does it take to pack n minus t plus 1 puzzles together? And it's really, really fast. So this is like in microseconds, right? So this is like 8, if you want to pack 200 puzzles, you just need 8 microseconds. So this is really fast. And we also, implement our VTS constructions. Naturally, the BLS has some pairing operations to be performed, so it's a bit slower than the ECDSA and the Schnorr variant. I mean, do not be alarmed by the number of seconds you see here, but notice that in all our applications, the VTS is run the verification, right? So the verification, which seems to be the expensive operation here, is just run once, right? So both the commit and the verify is run once at the beginning of the protocol, right? And the rest of the protocol are completely independent of the VTS. So this is like a one-time cost and seems fine if for the benefits that you get from VTS. Okay, so I think I'll probably give like a brief conclusion. So in this work we present like efficient or practical constructions of VTS for signatures of interest in cryptocurrencies and blockchains like ECDS, HNOR, and BLS. And we identify several new applications of VTS from the classical multi-party signing to bringing it into the realm of the modern day settings like cryptocurrencies and blockchains. And naturally, the question I leave you guys with is that, you know, can we have VTS for other signature schemes apart from ECDS, HNOR, and BLS? Can we do it for I don't know, water signature and so on? Whatever signature is of interest in any sphere. And naturally, if we want to ask if there are more applications of VTS apart from the 3 that we cite in our work. You can find the implementation of our homomorphic time lock puzzles and the full paper. It'll soon be available in ePrint, but you can, if you are interested just now, you can take a look. And you're also welcome to look at our follow-up paper, PAYMO, where we do payment channels for Monero that basically extends the VTS to doing VTS for the linkable ring signature that is used in Monero, right? So we, instead of just doing for basic signature schemes, we extend our VTS techniques to a linkable ring signature scheme, and thereby we are able to obtain a new functionality of payment channels for Monero, which was not known before, without drastically changing the scheme of Monero. Okay, so this is like a fully compatible version for Monero, and you are welcome to look at this paper. Yeah, so I mean, feel free to write me any mails or follow me on social media. And thank you for listening, and I'm open for questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Aravind. So it was a very interesting talk. I'll first ask if any of the audience has a question. I have a couple of questions, but I'll first let the audience go if there is any questions. Anyone, any questions? Okay, I'll go first. Mm-hmm. Could you go back to this slide where you had Z tilde, where you wanted to do homomorphic operations? Mm-hmm. So here, does this mean that your RSA modulus needs to be something like little n times 2 lambda bits approximately, or maybe let's just
you are right. So the modulus, okay, so the modulus has to be n power s, where s is the number of puzzles you want to pack together. But the squaring operations are done in modulo n. Okay, so
so you have 2 moduli? I didn't get that.
No. So you have n, right? Mm-hmm. And your squaring operations are done in n. So modulus n, modulo n. So it's like g mod n, g square mod n, g power 4 mod n, and so on. Okay. But to the actual messages are embedded in modulo n power s.
Okay.
So this is the Damgard-Urich ciphertext.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
So it's like an extension of the Pilier system. So.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask one more. I have another question, but I'll ask the audience again. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, can you also give us some idea of the communication costs of these proofs, and like maybe this commit, what the commit and prove outputs, like how large are they? Let's say if you want to have, I don't know, let's say 1 day delay.
What do you mean by delay?
this T, if we want this time.
Okay. So So the communication cost is independent of T.
Okay.
Okay, so the communication cost is independent of T. It's more dependent on the statistical security parameter N. Let me show. You have this parameter N, right? So that's like the number of shares that you generate, and so that's why we evaluate it for different N, and with different soundness guarantees, right? So it really depends on the number of this number N, and is independent of T.
So let's say
that's why
N is equal to 40. How much communication is required?
Okay, so I have to kind of do like just a counting operation here. I'm not sure if we evaluated the communication cost, because it really is off chain, right? So we didn't evaluate the communication cost. But if I have to do like on the fly calculation,
just a very rough idea. Is it
So
gigabytes, megabytes? I don't know.
Yeah. I will have to check about the concrete in terms of bytes, but you are essentially, if you set your RSA modulus to be 1024, right? So then you are essentially sending, for n equal to 40, you are sending 40 puzzles, right? So you're sending 40 puzzles. You are, you're opening up 20 signatures. Yeah, I'm not too sure about the concrete numbers, but I'm not sure if we also talk about it in the paper.
It's probably less than, it's maybe around like 100 kilobytes or so. It doesn't seem
it should be small. Yeah, it should be.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, actually, an open problem is to optimize the communication cost, because we really didn't focus on that. Because in all our applications, it was like we had it off chain, right? So for us, what mattered was time and not the space.
Yeah, I see. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think our time is up. Okay, let me see. Right, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Aravind, for your time and giving this interesting seminar. And thank you everyone for tuning in. So the recording will be online soon if you want to watch it. And I wish everyone a happy holiday season. And we will see you next year, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me. Take care, guys.